Hi guys, Tommy here from Easy Buyers Agent. Here at Easy Buyers Agent, we buy the right property for our clients. First of all, I just would like to thank you all. Thank you so much for your time to visit our webinar. I really value your time, so we will keep this short and sharp. Thank you once again for coming. Thank you so much. Before we get started, let me just introduce myself. My name is Tommy, and I'm the principal consultant here at Easy Buyers Agent. I've had more than 10-year experience in property investing and have helped friends and families along the way to purchase properties. One thing that gets me very motivated to start this business is simply by how many people close to me who have simply gone blindly with property investing. We have all heard that property can make you rich. It can lead you to financial freedom and all that. But the thing is this, right? There are a lot more that goes into it. There are a lot more that goes into it. And a lot of my close friends and relatives and families, including myself, have actually lost money in property. Instead of making money, buying into the promise that property can make me rich, instead I have actually lost money simply because of lack of knowledge and understanding of how the game is played. So this is why I started this business. That is to help people buying the right property. You see, the money is always made in the purchase. Always. You can never make a gold out of a turd. You can never make a gold out of a turd. This is why it's really important for you all who are watching. Make sure you buy the right property in the first place. Whether you want to buy and hold, renovate, build, subdivide, you have to start with the right property in the first place. So anyway, that's just a little bit about me. I currently own 5 properties worth more than $2 million, and I'm in the process of acquiring a few more. In this opportunity, I want to share with you my experience so that all of us, you and I, can become a better investor. Subdivision is a very interesting aspect of property game. If you execute it correctly, you can make serious amount of money. But as you're aware, as with anything, the higher the return, the higher the risk. Okay, so if you don't execute it correctly, it will be a huge money pitfall for you. Now, in this webinar, I'm not going to talk to you about how subdivision works and the techniques around it, like such as finding a property for subdivision, the R code, the zoning, etc. You have to do your own due diligence. Okay, you have to engage your team, town planner, architect, and whatnot, to determine all these costs first. Okay, however, once you've got all these costings and you've managed to secure or found a property or land that is potential for subdivision, this is when I can then show you through this webinar how to calculate the potential profit. Okay, whether that project is worth doing or not, that's what you are going to see in this webinar. All right, so just a disclaimer there that this webinar is actually for calculating the actual costings and the profit. All right, but you have to do your own due diligence for the zoning, the R code, and whatnot. Okay, so given that you've had all that information, then through this webinar I can then show you how the costings, how to calculate the costings and the profitability. All right, okay, so before we continue further, I thought I would like to share with you a few ways to, well, there are actually 2 ways to make money from subdivision. All right, the first one is sell for profit. Sell for profit. All right, so you might have, or you might already have a property that you own that can be subdivided, and you can subdivide it and sell either the front property or the rear property and make money. Okay, so sell for profit. The second way is to increase your rent yield. So this is more of like, let's say you've got a big piece of land with property on already. You can then build, duplex or triplex, and then you can rent all of them and start making serious amount of rental. And by doing that, you can then hold that property. Possibly will be positive gearing even, and you can hold it for a long time, waiting for the value to grow, and you also enjoy the rent. the rent price, right? Which is more of like a more passive investing kind of thing. Okay, so two ways to make money from subdivision: sell for profit or increase rent yield. Selling for profit examples, I've just mentioned a few then, but you can retain your front house and subdivide the land at the back. You can then sell the rear land or vice versa. Sell the front, then to pay to pay the debt for the back. You can do that. You can build the rear land and sell that property. You can buy a subdivisible land, for example, a land, a huge piece of land that can be subdivided. Then you can build duplex or triplex and sell each unit. Okay, you can demolish the front house, then build duplex or triplex on the same land, then sell for each, etc., etc. Basically, this technique is to sort of flip it, right? You subdivide and you sell. The increasing of rental yield examples, you can retain the front house, renovate, and then build at the back and rent for both, receiving pretty decent sort of rental. I don't know, 700, 800, 900 bucks a week kind of thing. You can build granny flat at the back and rent it, right? You can build dual occupancy, for example, and rent it, right? Dual occupancy is where you can have multiple buildings on the same title, so you don't have to subdivide, but within the same land, you can build sort of dual occupancy property. You can demolish the front house, then build duplex and triplex and rent them all, right? So these are just examples on how you can make money from subdivision, right? The next thing I'm going to talk to you about is actually the risks in subdivision. Risk in subdivision, right? Risk obviously are the things that would potentially, if you don't cater for this, if you overlook this risk, it can be a major pitfall, money pitfall for you. All right. So the risk in subdivision, obviously, project goes over time and over budget. Remember, time is essential here, right? The longer it goes, the more holding costs, right? The more interest you need to pay. So project goes over time and over budget. This is one thing that you have to be really careful about. Second one is, land is not flat and sandy, right? Thus increasing the site works costs. As you can imagine, if the land is in a, area where there's full of clay, for example, then site works will be really expensive. So that can blow your budget up. If the land is sloping, then you will pay a lot of money also, right, to retain it. Third one is development approval doesn't come through from the council or from planning commission, and that, let's say you plan to build triplex, you've calculated that you can make profit, and then suddenly they say, sorry guys, you can't, you can only do duplex, and then there you go, suddenly you lose one worth of unit profit there. All right, and obviously the final one is you are pretty much building a product, right? So there is always a risk. It's a new product. You have to research carefully whether the product you're building, you can either sell it or rent it, right? But if nobody wants to buy your product or want to rent in it, then you'll be stuffed there, right? You're gonna end up with like a property that you can't sell, right? So you have to do your own due diligence here, really careful. Choose an area. Let's say you want to build a triplex. Choose an area where people actually want to buy triplex, right? Because otherwise, you build all these nice triplexes and nobody wants to rent in it. Nobody wants to buy. Let's say you build it in an area where every house is every property in that area is a house, a 4x2 house, and what's the chance then you build a unit 2x1 unit? What's the chance of that being rentable, for example? So that kind of thing you really have to be careful about. All right, so as you can see, if you can execute it correctly, you can make a lot of money, obviously, through subdivision, right? Because the profit is big. But if the risk, the risks are pretty big also. So if you're not careful, if you don't execute this project correctly, I mean, you can lose serious amount of money. Or not just that, maybe you just break even, right? But if it's just breaking even, then it's like an effort that's just spent, it's like a worthless effort kind of thing. I mean, you've spent all this stress and hours and whatnot to execute the project, and in the end, you're just not making any money, right? So, yeah, again, I can't stress this enough. It's all about buying the right property, okay? Buying the right property, building the right product, you have to know the area and all that. You have to do your due diligence really, really carefully. Okay, so anyway, without further ado, let me just show you now how to put it all the figures into calculation so that you can actually quickly analyze, pre-analyze before you purchase the property. You pre-analyze if the project is actually worth your time, if the project is going to be profitable or not. Okay, but then again, this calculation goes with one disclaimer. Given that you have done, so you've already had the potential land or property that you want to purchase for subdivision, right? So it means that you have to check with councils and whatnot whether the property is subdivisible or not. Okay, so that's number one. And secondly, you've also consulted with the experts on all the potential costs that may be involved. Okay, so given that you've had these two things together, now I can show you to put the numbers together, whether they will, you know, worth your time or not. All right, let's go. All right, guys, what I have here is the calculator for the subdivide and sell strategy. Okay, and then we're going to do after this the subdivide and rent. Okay, so what I have here, I've got three columns: rear land subdivision, triplex development, and duplex development. Okay, we're going to start with the rear land. So this is purchasing a property where you can just subdivide the rear land and you want to sell the rear land. All right, here we go. Interest rate at 4%. Okay, property purchase at $500,000. Build price, because we're not building, we just subdivide the rear land, so it's 0. All right, asset borrowing 80%. Now this time I borrow 80%, not 90%, because I found that if you borrow 90%, it's a lot less profit, a lot less profit. Okay, asset borrowing is 80% of 100,000, which is $400,000. Borrowing deposit, $100,000, obviously 20%, right? And no LMI. Okay, no LMI because it's, you know, I borrow 80%. Therefore, my total borrowing is $400,000. Okay, stamp duty on the purchase price at 4%, $20,000. Upfront costs, conveyancing and whatnot, right, at 1% is sitting at $4,000. Right, holding year. Okay, because this is just subdividing the rear land, I think, you know, it can be finished within the year. So I'll just put holding year as just 1. Holding costs of that 1 year is 4% of total borrowing, right? That's the interest. Okay, $16,000. All right, at this calculation, I'm not including my fee. All right, so this is assuming you buy your own land, right? You buy your own property, not through me. So no agent fee here, no Easy Buyers agent fee, 0. And this is the subdivision cost, right? This is the cost that you have to do your due diligence on. You have to engage your experts and whatnot. And they said, yep, it's going to cost you 30 grand to subdivide this property. All right, so let's just put in 30 grand, right? So in total, the deposit needed is $170,000, which is the borrowing deposit, okay, plus all these upfront costs, this, and that. Okay, remember, subdivision costs, you can't include it in your bank wouldn't normally lend you the money for subdivision, so you have to fork out this money yourself. Therefore, the deposit needed, the 20% plus all these costs, is at $170,000, meaning my total expenses for this project, right, is my purchase price plus the costs, right, plus all these costs. Okay, so cost me $570,000. This is sort of my projected total expenses. If I purchase this property and I want to do a subdivision of the rear land on this property, it's going to cost me $570,000. Okay, so somehow when I sell later on, I have to recoup and still make profit of this $570,000. Does that make sense? Okay, now we've got this I should say like a guide, right? When you do this sort of work, you are expecting a 20% profit of the cost, which is $114,000. Now we'll see then if this project worth the time and effort or not. All right. So my total cost $570,000. Okay. See here now. Now this is where the projected profitability come in. Okay. Property one selling price. So this is the front property. I know that, let's say, you've done your research, your front property can sell for $400,000. All right. And then property two selling price, which is your rear land after your subdivision, let's say you can sell it for $250,000. Okay. I put in here further 1 year holding costs. For example, let's say you can't sell the property, both of them, for another year. Then you have catered for the cost here, right? So I put this in. If I sell both property, right, meaning that I have to pay the agent, real estate agent, to sell it for me, right? I just put this in 3%, 19,500. Exit fee from the bank and whatnot, right? 1%, 6,500. So my raw profit, right, is $38,000. It's pretty much this plus this minus the cost. Okay, is $38,000. All right. So yeah, my selling price minus the total cost plus all these additional costs, $38,000, right? Then I have to pay capital gain tax. Remember, because I make a profit, I have to pay capital gain tax. Yeah, let's just put in 40% tax bracket. This off, and because I own this more than a year, so I need to only pay capital gain tax of half of the profit, right? $7,600. Therefore, my raw profit after capital gain tax is $30,400, right? Now, all these costs, remember, is all tax deductible unless except the stamp duty, but all these costs is generally tax deductible, right? So I can expect a tax return from the cost with 40% tax bracket. My tax return is sitting at $20,000. Therefore, my actual profit for the subdivision work is $50,400, right? Does that make sense so far? And my cash on cash return, this is my deposit needed, so this is the money that I put in, right? And then I can make this profit. It means that my cash on cash returns is sitting at 29.65%, which is pretty good. But then again, this is the risk, right? This is assuming that you can actually sell your front property for $400,000 and you can sell the rear land for $25,000. What happens if, let's say, the rear land only sells for $200,000, right? What if it actually takes more than a year then to sell it, right? I mean, it's going to be more holding costs, right? And what if you can't sell the front property at all, right? So that's the kind of risk. I mean, given that you can actually, that these numbers work, and given that the scenario actually plays in your favor, then this is sort of profit you're looking at, okay? If even let's say things getting a lot better for you, for example, let's say the further one your holding cost is actually not there because you managed to be able to sell both properties even quicker, then it will be more profit. All right, but this is how you calculate just quickly, right? And then you can then determine, look, it cost me $570,000. I'm actually expecting $114,000 profit, but I only make $50,400 in the end. Whether it's worth your time or not, that's for you to answer. Okay, the next one we're going to look at is triplex. Very similar. Okay, let's say you purchase a property that can be built into triplex, right? And then here the build price to build a triplex, let's say you've consulted your expert and they said, yep, it's going to cost me $550,000. Okay, so $500,000 per property purchase and extra $550,000 for the build price. All right, this is turnkey, everything is included, landscaping and everything. All right, asset borrowing, meaning 20%, 80% of these two is $840,000. My borrowing deposit, which is 20% of these two, all right, is $210,000, right? No LMI, Okay, no LMI because I borrow 80%. Therefore, my total borrowing is $840,000. Again, you pay stamp duty of the $500,000 property purchase. Okay, upfront costs. Holding year is actually 2 years now. Therefore, my holding cost is sitting at $67,200 because the subdivision alone will take almost a year, and then it will take another year to build the triplex. Okay, 2 years. And this is how much it's sitting at. Again, this is assuming you are just buying the property on your own. So you don't need my help to buy this property, right? You manage to find your own deal. So no agent fee there. Other costs, right? So this is like, let's say you buy this property and it has a house at the front and you need to demolish it. So my upfront cost here is $20,000 as for the demolition. Therefore, I need this much deposit, right? 20% plus all the costs, $305,600, okay? And my total expenses is sitting at $1,145,600, okay? Why it's sitting so high is because obviously total expenses including the build price and all these extra costs. So it's sitting at that. Therefore, I am expecting a profit of $229,120, right? 20% profit. So that's in a perfect world, that's the sort of profit I need to look at. If it's less than that, I don't know whether it's worth it or not. It's your call. Okay. Anyway, therefore, my total cost, right? $1,145,600. The potential revenue. So I'm building a triplex that I can sell the unit. I think I can sell the unit based on my research, right, at $450,000. Therefore, my expected revenue by selling these 3 units at $450,000 each is $1,350,000. Okay, leave this as 0 because we just calculate everything here, right? And then further 1 year holding cost. Again, if let's say you can't sell all the 3 units within the year, within the second year after you finish building, then you have to add another year, right? 33,600 agent fee to sell all these 3 properties of yours, exit fee. So my profit raw is sitting at 116,800, and then don't forget you get capital gain tax, and it's now sitting at $93,440 after capital gain tax, right? But then I now get tax return from the costs. So my total profit now, that's my tax return there, my total profit now is sitting at $131,680 bucks. There you go. It's 21.5% return on my injected cash. Now ask yourself this question, whether this is worth it or not. Again, if the world turns in your favor and you don't need that long, then you can reduce all these costs, right? And you can end up with more profit. But I guess through this calculation, what I want to show you is you can quickly calculate whether a project worth your time or not. Let's say this triplex build is going to take you 2 years and you're going to be making $131,680,000 within that 2 years, meaning it's only what, 65 grand a year. Whether it's worth it or not, it's for you to answer. All right. Same with duplex, same principle, right? Except you're selling 2 units instead of 3. And again, you can use sort of similar calculation, raw calculation to determine your profitability. The second calculator I'm showing you right now, this is the subdivide and hold it for rent. Okay, hold it for rent. All right, very quickly, purchase price $400,000. Okay, then the build price at the back, all right, $200,000. Okay, this time I borrow 90%. This time I borrow 90% at $540,000. Borrowing deposit, meaning is the 10% of these 2. Okay, $60,000. LMI 25,705 because I only borrow 90%. Okay, so my total borrowing now is 565,705. 5, all right, which is the asset borrowing plus the LMI. I've got stamp duty, upfront costs. Okay, this is the demolition of the front house and subdivision. Let's say 50 grand. My buyer's agent fee to secure this property, right? Because I can secure, this prime location, growth and whatnot. So let's say you pay me $8,000. Okay, assuming this is you're using my service. Therefore, my deposit needed, my cash, I need to put in $138,000, right? Which is the borrowing deposit plus all this upfront costs, $138,000. Okay, I put in another year holding costs because I'm building the property, so it cost me further 22,628.2. Therefore, the total money invested is about 160 grand, which is this plus this. Total money invested is 160 grand, $628.2, right? Now, this is the calculation. Sorry, a bit of a cold here. Rent per week, right? With this two property, okay, that I'm building, I can get $850. $850. Therefore, my annual rent is sitting at $44,200, and then I have to pay the annual interest. Okay, rates. Let's just put in $3,000. Sorry, 300. Yeah, $3,000. And because I have two properties, right? So it's two rates, two titles, and water rate as well. Okay, $6,000. Insurance, landlord, and whatnot. Again, 2,500 times 2. Okay, property manager. This is of the rent, 10% of the rent, which is 4,420. It's not timed by 2 because this is already a total. This is already calculated off the total rent. All right, of both properties. Maintenance, again, $500 per property times 2. 2 times sliding fee. Again, this is calculated off the annual rent, and vacancy rate calculated off the annual rent. All right. So in total, my running expenses is sitting at $43,400. Gearing, negative gearing, actually not negative gearing. Check this out. This is actually positive gearing. This is actually positive gearing because my total annual expenses is at $43,400. And my annual rent is sitting at $44,200. How good is that, right? So I receive more rent than the expenses. Therefore, it's a positive gearing. Okay, even better, I can claim depreciation. Okay, tax return on depreciation. This is actually cost to me, right? Tax return on the gearing because it's positive gearing, so I actually have to pay more tax, which is fine. That's my extra tax I need to pay. Total return on holding costs and fee for the first year, right? So my total tax return is sitting at $36,171.2 for the first year. It means I got a cash flow, positive cash flow of $36,971 for the first year. How great is that? So this is the first year after the house is built. Okay, but check this out. For the subsequent years, because this is positive gearing, right? So it's even greater cash flow now. After the tax return, I actually get $3 grand plus of positive cash flow. And if you calculate the property increasing by 4% every year, that's total cash on cash return, right? Remember, I injected $160,628.2 at the front. So given the return, given that cash flow, I am actually getting cash on cash return at this rate. Now, whether this is still greater, obviously, compared to like shares and whatnot. So again, this is a really good calculation. And not just that, I mean, this is just me assuming the property grows at 4%. Generally, it's 8 to 10%, so this will be even greater. So if I change this to, let's say, 8%, as you can see, my cash on cash return is even greater. But then again, the risk of doing this is obviously, what if you can't rent for 850 for both, right? What if you only get, I don't know, 700 bucks? Then suddenly you are in negative gearing and negative cash flow territory. Okay, so you have to do your due diligence, guys. With subdivision, you have to make sure that the end product is rentable and can be sold. Also, by how much, right? So if you want to sell it, you have to be able to sell it at a particular price, because that will determine your profit. Okay, and if you want to rent it, you have to make sure the amount of rents that you're getting for these properties actually give you positive cash flow. Positive cash flow. Remember, if it's negative cash flow, it is bad. You don't want to get near it. All right, especially with interest rate this low, you just want to have a positive cash flow as much as possible. All right. Okay. So, as you can see, guys, buying the right property is the key. It's non-negotiable. Property is a big purchase. Might as well do it right. Okay. So before I close off, I thought I just want to mention this. If you wish to use the same calculator as we do here internally, you can actually purchase the calculator. It only costs you $11. Very, very cheap. But remember, this calculator is what allows us to analyze our projected property purchase before we buy. Remember, this is all about minimizing risk as much as we can, so we know what sort of numbers we're dealing with. Okay, but other than that, I thank you so much. I thank you so much for your time. I hope this webinar has been valuable. And if you need more information on the kind of service we provide, please call or email. Remember, we stand by you as a property buyer and investor, and we make sure that the property we help purchase is the right one. Thank you once again, everyone. I'll see you next time.